a fantastic summation of where we are. So we've gone from swallows to tadpoles to octopuses, I noticed were in there as well.
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes for questions. I would be intrigued to invite any comments and questions, particularly from researchers in the room, to kick this off. I know we have some researchers. Does anyone have any comment about the different... Thank you. Oh, Declan. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a computer scientist, researcher, so this whole conference has been really interesting to me. From a researcher point of view, the situation is very confusing, I must admit. And I'd love the answer to come as to, well, what is the future for the library? So are there things that can be done even at a European level or in some way to bring organizations on board, or is it likely it's going to be spot solutions depending on, what country you're in?
That's a very good question. So the European Commission is doing a lot of work in this area because a lot of the solutions we need is infrastructure, and so infrastructure is much more successful if it's collectively done rather than individually done. And so something that is underway is the European Open Science Cloud. So it's not a thing; it's a collection of things, but the idea being that it is a place to share not just research publication outputs, but research data, and increasingly this idea about actually spreading, this is another sort of one of my bug, rants, is about that we really need to change the reward system that is really causing all sorts of problems, and that one of the ways to help with the reproducibility crisis and so on is to actually spread out the reward throughout the research process, and so that you actually put your protocol, your software, your analysis, all of these sorts of things as discrete research outputs that can then be citable and rewarded, so that we don't have all the weight on just the novel results published in a high impact journal, which is what we've got at the moment. So the European Open Science Cloud is very much designed to try and capture that kind of material. So there's a really large amount of work being done in the European space. And there's actually sort of stuff being done. Australia's doing it. The African Research Online, they're creating an open science cloud. Japan is got a big manifesto to do with open science. So there's a lot of work being done really at a very, very high level to try and address this issue. So I can see that's really, really confusing from a researcher's point of view, because you've got the work you're wanting to do, which is actual research, and then there's this other ecosystem of crap, and it's sort of like, oh, just tell me what to do. I get a lot of that from researchers, which is fair enough, because it's just like, I don't want to know all this stuff, I just want it to work. So we are in a period of transition, but there is this sort of, I feel that I'm concerned, the kinds of conversations I sometimes have with senior researchers where they'll say, we're wasting all time with all of this open access stuff, and it's too expensive. And then also they talk about academic freedom, and I'm thinking, well, it's going to be a hell of a lot more expensive, and there will be no academic freedom if this is being run by a commercial enterprise. So that's the sort of, so that's not really an answer, I'm afraid. But yes, in answer to is this stuff being done at high level? Yes, it is.
On a European level, Danny, what do you think about this coming collision course between research data management and openness and all that on one side, and then the 2018 data protection coming on the other? Would you have any comments on that?
Yes, and this is where we are desperately in need of a solution for managed access to data. Because and we really need to be very, very careful when we're talking about research data management to talk about research data management and not open data. Do not use the term open data with researchers. They will freak out. They do. They get really emotional and quite agitated. And I've literally had people yelling at me about, it's like, calm down, that's okay. So what we need to talk about is really good research data management, where right from the beginning of the project, you are looking at a proper research data management plan where you say this is what we're going to do with the data, understanding that there are limitations, particularly with personal data, from different legal limitations. So this is what we're going to be doing with it, and then having that process followed through. And then at the end, and this is a bit we haven't got yet, is having a managed access system so that you can say, yes, you can have a look at this data because you are a known entity and you are, agreeing on legally binding conditions to be doing X, Y, and Z with it. But no, I can't put it openly accessible because it would, may identify a patient or whatever. So that's where this comes in, and it's not. We're really struggling with it. It's one of the things that we want to try and resolve, but we haven't got there yet. Anyone got any suggestions? Be happy to hear them about managed access to data. Hi, you're all coming out now. Everyone's putting up their hand up now.
Yes, hello. John Howard from UCD. You created in your examples two poles. On the one side, you had publishers showing remarkable agility and adapting to the needs of researchers, and on the opposite, you used Cambridge as an example, a place where there was bureaucracy and conservatism, and so you're looking at two different cultural extremes. I think in higher education in the British Isles, we also have a cultural issue within higher education of a class system where libraries don't necessarily occupy the top tier of that class system. And I wonder, again, going back to the example of Cambridge, how you're trying to deal with that particular issue in the context of open access.
It's really hard. It's very hard. What we're doing is we're doing projects like our Research Data Champions, for example, where we're getting people who are interested in this, who are embedded, who are researchers, and working with them to try and get them to sort of spread the love, because otherwise it is this clash between us and the top, and really we have actually got a lot of goodwill in the middle. And so it's a matter of harnessing that goodwill. And so the Office of Scholarly Communication at Cambridge is actually under review at the moment. So this is an opportunity we see for people around the world community and within the Cambridge community to express their feelings about this area and whether or not they feel it's necessary and whether or not they feel that the support should be continued or not. I suspect that it's going to come out fairly strongly in our favour, actually, which may not necessarily have been the intention. It is challenging. I do remember when I was working for the Australian National University, somebody said, why don't you work for a smaller institution where you can actually get something done? And so I think that actually being in the institutions that aren't, the big mama institutions, actually is an advantage. You can get stuff done. The University of Liège, who brought in the requirement that you had to have your articles in the repository to be considered for promotion, enormously successful. QUT, Queensland University of Technology, it's not the fanciest university. It's pretty good, but it's not the fanciest university in Australia, but it was the world leader. It was the first one to bring in an institution-wide open access mandate. So these are smaller, much more nimble, nubile, I think was the other word I was thinking of, institutions that are able to do this sort of thing because they're not restricted by 800 years of history. So take advantage of it.
Hi. So I'm a researcher at UCC. I'm actually not a librarian at all. So hi, everyone. And I'm in the music department there. And I really appreciated what you were saying about the resistance to change, especially amongst senior researchers. One thing I want to note is that I think that this is actually a critical moment in a lot of ways because I just got my PhD 3 years ago. And so I'm part of this younger generation of scholars who is really upset with a lot of the senior researchers who have advised us in particular ways because the way that they went through the research system actually doesn't work for us.
Yep.
It doesn't get us jobs a lot of the time. And so I actually think that this is a moment of opportunity where there are so many people who are displeased with what has happened and they are actually looking for new ways to publish and don't want to publish in the giant journals. Because honestly, that has not gotten them anywhere, right? So I don't really have a question. I just kind of wanted to note that I think that that there is room for some kind of movement there. I don't quite know how to harness that energy that's coming out of this younger generation of scholars. But I also know that I've done a lot of work with folks interested in alt-ac. I hate the term alt-ac. I think it should be all-ac, because really we need to be thinking about hybrid academic careers for researchers. And I know that a lot of those folks also are interested in publishing, but not necessarily in the traditional means, because it does take a lot of time, so that's it, just a comment.
So I would suggest anybody who is interested in, especially early career researchers in this area, there's a group called OpenCon, which stands for Open Conference. And they have, they're aimed specifically at early career researchers to give them tools to lobby, to understand the issues that are going on, give them tools to lobby both with government and with the European Union and with their own institution. There's two organisations, OpenCon specifically aimed at early career researchers, and another one is called Force 11, the Future of Research and E-Scholarship, I think is what, I can't remember, but anyway, Force 11. And that's a community of people that are doing all sorts of interesting things in this area. So if you're interested in this stuff, just check out the websites, because they are a place that's where the international community is gathering to try and get some movement happening. So there is stuff happening. You can be part of the process if you wish.
Thank you so much for that. And we're out of time, unfortunately, but Danny, you're here for the rest of the day?
Yep.
Yeah.
The discussion at the end.
And a discussion later on. So on behalf of everyone, we have a present for you. And when I'm giving you that, perhaps we could all show our extreme appreciation for Danny.